Okay. Hello, everybody. Hey, Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello, Bettina. Hear you loud and clear.
Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good whatever for all of you joining us today. Give us a quick thumbs up if the sound is good and if you can hear us well. Thanks very much for joining us today. All good?
Yeah, it looks like everything is fine.
Perfect. Oh, well, okay, well, thanks very much for coming today. So for our latest workshop today, we're going to build a Spring Java microservice with Apache Cassandra. And with me is Alex. Thanks very much for joining me, Alex.
Big pleasure.
And we look forward to doing a hands-on workshop with you today. So this is a coding workshop, and we really hope you're going to get coding along with us and try everything out. So there's going to be lots of time for hands-on today. And yeah, so don't hold back. We're this usual crew, right? So there's quite a few people in the background. For example, David is hosting the session today, and then we have Cedric and potentially even Eric still up, or Eric up again to support questions in the background, and probably also some other data staxers. So thanks everybody for answering questions on Discord and in the YouTube chat. That's very much appreciated. And
please, please ask questions. So we have a bunch of experts here today to answer your questions.
Yes, please. Yeah, make it interactive. We really want to hear what you're thinking and what you're struggling with, especially what you find problematic, so we can address them right then. So let us know. We're streaming on Twitch, but we will only be looking at the chat in YouTube. So that's our main sort of like streaming in YouTube. And we also have the Discord, right? So if you have more complex questions or want to use some Markdown, so that's much better to go to Discord. And today we're going to be using Astra, the DataStax Cassandra as a service. And you don't have to install anything, but you would have to register in order to use it. And we very much encourage you to do that so that you can use the free tier to run this application and host it there. And we will be using quizzes. So for those who've been to our workshops before, we use menti.com. We will give you a code in a moment in order to enter the quiz. And yeah, please come along and do the quizzes with us. There's going to be some prizes for those who answer the questions the fastest in the end. And they're meant to be fun. So this fun quiz to test a little bit your understanding, but also to cheer you up a little bit. So that's going to be using menti.com, and we will give you the details in a moment what we need for that. Okay. But it's good if you can do it on your phone. I think it's the easiest. We have better interaction, but there's also browser support for that. Okay, good. So this is a hands-on session. You will need a little bit experience with Java language, but not too much if you don't have any, but it's also hopefully also interesting for you if you have a lot of Java experience, because basically we will show you how to hook up with Astra in order to implement your API. And you can do all the exercises on a local installation, that's fine. But we will be using Gitbot today. So you can use Gitbot if you have a GitHub account, and you can straight launch an IDE off the GitHub repository, and it's all there, all the code is there. And I will be using the same platform to code along with you. So it's a really nice tool. And it also makes it easier for us to answer your questions because we have a very controlled environment, right? So we have the same Java version. We know where everything is installed, etc. We know we won't have any problems with dependencies. So this is going to be our platform today, and it's going to be hands-on, right? So there will be quite a bit of time to do some hands-on exercises, and we really want you to code along. That would be great. So you will need 3 things, basically, or perhaps actually only 2. So you will need to get an Astra instance. So if you don't have one already, So this is the link where you would get to. I think that's also the QR code in order to get to that Astra instance. And then also the GitHub repo. You know, Alex, perhaps you can put the repo link into the chat for everybody so they have it.
We'll do in a moment, sure.
Perfect. And then we've put a link in here for the driver documentation if you want to take it further, but it's not anything that we're going to look at today or need in particular today. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I would like to add a couple of words regarding Astra, because I see there are questions about Astra in the YouTube chat. It's very simple. So Cassandra is a great thing, but it's not the easiest thing to maintain and keep running. So you need to have some expertise to launch that and do some jobs on that and so on. So Astra is managed Cassandra as a service. So, and that's perfect fit for our workshops, because you don't have to install anything, but you have all you need available in the internet, and you don't install anything locally. We use Cassandra as a service, so Astra as a database, and we use Gitbot to run your code again in the internet. So all you need is only a browser and internet connection. And if you are watching me right now, mostly probably you have an internet connection.
Exactly. But so you need a GitHub in order to access Gitbot. You need a GitHub account. But you know, I think you probably have that already anyway. So, and also that's very easy to set up and it's free as well. So good. So let's go to Menti and start with just a few questions. So did we understand a little bit what your background is, where you're coming from? So this is not a quiz. This is just for us to find out a little bit about you. And so you can just scan the QR code, and that leads you to the right page, or you can go to menti.com and put that code in, and the code is 8703016. And I will just go to my presentation here and start it here. Okay. Good. So give me a thumbs up if you're in Menti. So I should see this here. I've got 13 at the moment, but we don't need to wait for everybody. Nothing. There's no prizes for these questions in the beginning. They will come later on. But yeah, cool. I see about 20. That's wonderful. Let's find out a little bit about you. So how much practical experience do you have with Apache Cassandra? So that's always very interesting to see what our split is here, what the distribution is. Oh, it's wonderful that we have so many people who've never used it. This is really great. Oh, and we also have some who've already developed an app using Cassandra. That's going to be interesting. So, okay, that's a really good mix. So welcome to everybody who's never used it. I think this is a really good introductory workshop for you, and hopefully you will be able to get your app up and running pretty quickly and take it further, right? And Astra should give you all the tools you need to do that. Okay, good. And how much practical experience you have with the Spring framework? Okay, so interesting. Also, for a lot of people never used it. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I see some people answering in the YouTube chat. It's very fine to answer our questions in the YouTube chat or Discord, even better. But the best place to answer our questions is the menti.com using code 8703016. This way you can not only answer questions, but also to participate in the quiz, where we will give out some of swag if you answer our questions fast enough.
Perfect. But not for these survey questions. There's no speed or anything required. This is only for us to understand a little bit the audience. Yeah. But yeah, if you can answer them in Menti, I can see them. I can't actually see the YouTube chat while we're broadcasting this. So I find that too distracting. But so let's okay, next one. Where is your company in their cloud journey? Okay, it's also quite a mix here. Interesting. So quite a few who really don't use any cloud solutions. That's interesting. And of course, infrastructure as a service. I think that's the predominant. So, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And let's go to the next one. How did you hear about this workshop? So we run them every week. Actually, we run them twice per week. We did the same session as yesterday. And we have also 2 more workshops next week, for example, where we introduce Cassandra a little bit more from the Cassandra side. Okay, interesting. Good. We like that.
What really surprised me, is more and more people are coming to the workshops from Instagram. That's like surprises me.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Funny enough, Instagram is one of the biggest Cassandra users, and moreover, they contribute a lot to the open source Apache Cassandra. So huge changes were delivered by them for the upcoming Cassandra 4 something releases. They didn't get into 4.0, but I hope they will deliver their changes to 4 point something. And yeah, that's great to see such big companies using and developing Cassandra. That's great.
Yeah, well, that's true. Good. Have you been to any of our workshops before? So it's so we did a really long 8-week series in the summer, so 8 weeks, right? So this was very popular, so that's why the question. We've been to the 8-week series, but it was wonderful to see so many new people. That's fabulous. So thank you very much for coming today, and I hope you're going to find it fun. So, and also for those who are coming back, thank you. Thanks for coming back. Lovely to see you. Okay. And yeah, that was it. So
regarding
Alex, did I cut you off there?
Sorry?
Did I cut you off?
Oh, a little bit, sorry, don't worry, it's absolutely fine. And the online events like that, it's inevitable. So my point was, as we have so many people with 0 to low Cassandra experience, and this workshop is more about microservices and Java and Spring, we don't spend too much time on the Cassandra. But one thing you have to remember now, is Cassandra is great for any big data applications or any applications you want to be available all the time with 0 downtime, working with petabytes of data within milliseconds and answering very quickly. But also Cassandra deserves some of your attention. So it comes with experience. So what I really suggest you to do after this workshop is take a look at one of our workshops regarding introduction to Cassandra, where we explain how it works internally and what are the best use cases. So this workshop is not enough to get deeper into the Cassandra because we speak more about other topics, but we offer those workshops for free at the YouTube channel, Data Stacks Devs. Where are you mostly probably right now?
And also next week. So next week on Wednesday and Thursday, we also have the introduction to Cassandra. So at the same time as today. So we basically have also a hands-on workshop, which is focusing more on the Cassandra and the technology itself. Today is more about how do I use this Cassandra as a service in order to use it in my app, right? So we're not going so much into detail about Cassandra today, but yeah, it doesn't matter which order you take it. So if you come next week then to the introduction to Cassandra, that would be wonderful. Good. So I just noticed something that I actually did not prepare and set up the demo because I deleted all my database and the Gitbot in order to start from scratch. But I show you a little bit what the demo is about and what we're going to build. And we have a few slides, but I actually cannot show you the live demo. I apologize. I didn't think about that. So, this is we're going to build something today which ties into an effort that is very useful if you want to learn a new language or want to try out a new technology stack and you want to understand what it's all about. And there is a really nice effort which is called the To-Do MVC, or the two, and with it the To-Do backends, in order to provide you with example applications, both for a backend and for the front end, to build a to-do application. So when it comes to database development and database application, you could say that to-do lists are a little bit like the hello world, right, of database applications. So you create a list and you create a task and you delete the task, you update the task, and you show all tasks and all these kind of things. And the to-do MVC basically gives you lots of example implementations for example, the client. And then there's a lot of example applications for the backend that serves the API in order for this to support this to-do list. So I think here is the example of the to-do backend web page, which has all these different implementations. And we haven't actually created one and submitted one for Cassandra, and we should, but you can find lots of other things here in order to try it out, lots of other frameworks. And they basically all use the same data model, and they all use the same idea, right? They support a to-do list. And this is what we're building today. So we do exactly the same thing. And this is how far we're going to take it today. We're getting it to a smarter interface, where we have these different APIs that we can get ordered to the complete list of the tasks. We can create new tasks. We delete all of them, or we delete a specific one. We update a specific one, or we get a specific one, we delete from a specific one, or we update a specific one. And this is the client. This is one of the example clients that you could then plug onto this one in order to show you to-dos and delete them, mark them as complete, etc. Right. So we're going to take it today. We wanted to have a simple app, really, to focus on really how to construct this and how to use it with Astra. We're going to take it to this level. If you wanted to take it later to the level with the client application, you might need to make some additional data model changes in order just to support that specific public test. And we have some instructions for that as well. So you can take that later. Okay, so my apologies, I don't have the demo up and running, but we're going to build it all from scratch together. Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Astra. In addition to what Alex has already said, it's a service provided by DataStax. It is basically Cassandra as a service. It's fully managed. You do not have to install anything. It's without any operations. It's just available for you, and it has a very generous free tier, and you can sign up with just your email address. You don't need a credit card. There's no time that it expires. It's up forever, and it gives you 3 GB of free storage, and you do not have to manage it, right? You do not have to keep an eye really on the background and on the performance of Cassandra. So it's a great tool to get started, but it's also a great database for production. So we have production workloads from customers on Astra, and it's absolutely suitable for that, but not for our demo case today. Okay, so we're going to do that together in a moment. What we would like you to do is that we create your Astra database, and if you're new to Astra, you wouldn't need to go and sign up, right? So if you haven't done it already, and we will be using these values, right? So you will be asked when you sign up, you will be asked for the name of your database, whatever, that's your choice. But we will be using these values. We will be creating a key space. That is, this is the space where we have all our tables for the application. And so we call it to-do app. And then we've chosen username, KV user, and password, KV password. That's kind of a little bit historic, tying into the previous workshops that we've done. You can choose different values, absolutely fine. You probably just need to then update the code later. So if you want to have it very easy without having to edit any code and making any changes, then stick with those values, right? But you will need to do something. When we're there, you will need to get the secure bundle from Astra. and you will find it once you have the connection details. You will find that here. You need to click on that link, on that little icon, to copy it to the clipboard, and then you will need to insert it into your curl command. And I'll show you all that in a moment again. But I just want to make sure that you get this message. You need that secure bundle link from your Astra in order to code along, right? In order to get the secure bundle onto your Gitbot so that you can connect to Astra. So, okay, right. So let's get started with that. So if you want to, this is Astra. I hope it's big enough for you. I've zoomed in quite a lot. If you just let us know if you can't read it. But basically, when you get into Astra, so you have the choice to select your free tier. I don't want to pay, so I'm going to do that. I'm choosing the Euro Best, and then I put my data name in. So I did this to do app, and then I pull the key space to do app, and I put KV user. And this is here probably already pre-populated because I've been using this combination all the time. And then you need to put that in again. Okay, and then you click on Launch Database. And then you see, for example, here this red spinning wheel, that something's happening here. And then launching your database, it will take a little bit of a time. So you see here this green banner, database is initializing. Takes a little bit of time. And then you get all your connection details in a moment. And if you're coding along, let us know when you're successful, right? Give us a thumbs up that you have it all set up and ready to go. Alex, do you have any idea how many people are trying it out?
Around 100.
That would be lovely. I think while this is finished, oh, it's created. See, so once it's created, you see that you have here all the connection details. If your screen normally looks a little bit sort of more like this, I think I've just zoomed in so much that you have them next to each other, right? So the cluster details and the connection details. And then again, you would want to copy this link here, right? This in order to create to download the bundle later on to your Gitbot, and we're going to do that now. So set up the Gitbot. So let's go to the instructions in GitHub. So this is the README. Again, I hope you can see it. So the repo is DataStax Academy, Spring Boot to do app. And then here, you see sort of like our table of contents. And then here we are going to start here in exercise 0, the preparations. We have a link here to start Gitbot. You want to open that in a new tab, right? So click open a new tab. And this is what you're going to see. So this is starting. See, this is some Docker containers are being provisioned. It's initializing the workspace. And let me also make that a bit bigger, actually. So, and then you see this is probably a bit too big. So this is, so you see you have a full IDE here, right? So this is the preview of the README, and then you have your terminal here. I actually do make it a bit bigger. Oops. So here, this is your terminal. So this is your workspace here, and then here we have our main project with our source code, right? Our main and our test. You can go into all these files. For example, and this is going to be the first test that we're going to run. So you can edit it here and make your changes and run it all, right? So this is the work environment we're going to use today. And so as you saw, you just do a few clicks basically, and then you have it all at your fingertips, right? You have a working database, and you have a working IDE, and you can make modifications, you can code, and I'll show you in a moment how we connect to the database. So what we want you to do is, we want you to get the secure bundle, right? Once you've created the database. And so this is basically the link that this is basically the format. We want to curl it with the -L option, and then we want to insert this link here, So when you go to the Astra connection page, it might make sense to just refresh this for a moment, because it creates these links and they only have a short lifetime, right? So they expire after about 5 minutes. So we want to have a very fresh connection link. So you see this is being copied to the clipboard. And now I can go into my Gitbot and I can do curl -L. Now I need to wrap this link into quotes. And that's, as you see, it's a very long link. You definitely want to copy that. Right? You don't want to type it all out. And then you redirect the output to creds.zip, and that is downloading the credentials. And you should receive about, let me just make it a bit bigger again. You should receive about 12 kilobytes here. If you don't get that, then you might have used an old link, one that has expired and it's missing some vital information, right? So this is really important, right? So before you curl this link or before you copy this link, you want to quickly refresh your UI here. So you get a fresh link, copy it to the clipboard, right? And then insert it into your curl command, curl -L, put it all into quotes, and then redirect it to creds.zip. This is the name we're going to be using. And so unless you want to make some changes in your code, I would say use that name. Okay, good. So do I need to give you a bit of time to get that all set up?
I see some people are waiting. Oh, sorry. I see some people are waiting for Gitbot to acquire a node. It may happen because we have pretty a lot of people at once using Gitbot. So it may take time before we provision a new node for you to serve your application. That's perfectly fine. And you see startup of the database on Astra may also take some time, because sometimes it's just spawn a database if we have enough servers running right now, or if it's already out of scope for the current power for the current machines, we have to spawn provision a new machine, so it may take longer in some cases. We are very fine. If you don't have your Astra or Gitbot not running right now, it's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah. We go into presentation mode for a while, so this can just run in the background if it takes a long time. First, just a few things. If you've used Astra before, right, so you might have it already provisioned with a different key space. And if you want to have add an additional key space, you can also do that, right? You can add another key space here and create the to-do app key space in case you want to retain your old key space. That's also fine, right? So let us, I think, give us a thumbs up if Astra is up for you and if Gitbot is up for you. Let's wait perhaps a couple of minutes and then we can move on. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, sounds really good.
Okay. How many thumbs up have you got? I'm already impatient. It's a shame that I can't see the chat. I would like to see the chat. Good. Okay. Well, I think I might
wait
move
a
on.
second.
What do you think? Yeah.
Not yet a little bit. I see a question, how to launch Gitbot. Would you please show how to launch Gitbot?
Yeah, I show you again. Let's go into this one. So you go to the
take a look, Bettina. Take a look. To launch application with Gitbot is so easy. So it's just was too quick demonstration. We have to do it again.
Exactly. No, that's so true. Honestly, I love Gitbot. It's really cool. So you can go to the GitHub repo, right? You need to be on the repo, and if you see the README page, you see it's here, Gitbot, ready to code. And we've put a button here, right? So you can just click on this one, but I would recommend to right-click on it, because if you click on it, this will just launch Gitbot in this browser window, and then you don't see the README anymore, right? So you can just right-click on it, right? And even though I have it already up here, this is my current workspace. So it's actually telling me, so you already have one. Do you want to continue using this, or do you want to create a new one? And that's really all that is to it, right? So I don't need it now because I have one already. So again, you just go and you right-click, you open it in a new tab, right? And there you are.
Yep. Gitbot is really great. I like it so much, and I want to use it for my new demo application as well, because, well, it's so simple to use.
And, I recommend it for my son, for example, to show off his computer science projects in school, because you don't have to have an IDE installed, right? It's just there. You just use your browser, and I've used it on my iPad. I think it's great, really. So it's very nice, and you can make changes, right? You can make changes to the code here. You have full control. You can really trial your application. It's a nice.
Yep. There are two more questions I would like to answer. First of one, what does this curl command do? Answer is very simple. To connect your application with Astra, we need not only a username and password and URL, but also a special credentials file. And with this curl command, you download these special credential files to your integrated development environment in Gitbot. So it's just to establish connection with Cassandra.
If you do an ls now, for example, you see that we have it here. That's the one that we downloaded, the creds.zip, right? So that's basically the secure connect bundle to Astra.
Yep.
And inside that bundle is all the credentials, for the secure connection. You don't have to open that up. You can leave it zipped, but this is basically what our driver, the DataStax driver, we use in order to connect to Astra. It has all the credentials zipped into that file.
I see more and more thumbs ups, but still, Japrit Singh, when I do add a key space in Astra, I had an existing key space. It asks for name, but then nothing happens. In a very short answer, on the free tier, you can have only one key space, so it will simply not work. You can?
No, you can have two. You can have two.
Okay.
But I think the problem that you're seeing is that it's the UI is not catching up to it. So if I do this, if I put another key space in that workshop and add it here, and then it might not show anything for you, right? What's happening here? So, here it actually says now you get a brief maintenance period, etc., and it might actually continue to spin for a while. So you have to wait to let that settle. But afterwards, you might not actually see it here, and I think that's a UI problem because we introduced this very recently that you can add the second key space to the free tier that you don't see it there. But when you now go into the database, and I go into the database, for example, like this with the CQL console, and do a quick, takes a bit, 10 seconds to get the password prompt for the free tier. That's not what I wanted to get stuck on now. But I show you that the key space actually does exist, right? So the key space is there, you just don't see it in the UI, and that is a known problem. So that is just that the UI isn't fully updating. And so if you look into the key spaces, you see this is the key space that I just created, workshop. So you can have additional key spaces. So if you already had a key space, you can add another key space. Don't get thrown by the UI not updating. You can totally use it, right? So the driver will discover it, and that should be fine. Thanks for bringing that up.
That's really great. Last time I've used Astra like 3 weeks ago, and now I jump in to see what on free tier we may have more than one key space. That's great.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
No, absolutely.
I have one very good question on the YouTube. Why the Astra is using 40% of the disk space even if there is no data? So that's a very good question. Do you have an answer?
Yes, it is a known issue. It is actually all, I've tried this out yesterday. I've noticed that yesterday as well. So I think it's reported. It shouldn't be. I think this is probably only using 40 kilobytes or something like that. Right?
Okay, so yeah, that's a bug. I will report it to Astra team. Maybe they know about it.
There's a GITHUB for it already. It's already reported.
Okay, reported.
And the same here. This is actually should be, because you're getting a single node. With the free tier, you only have one node, so it's actually only a replication factor of 1.
Good.
Okay.
Sounds like a good idea. Try to fix space percent issue live in production in another workshop. Actually, we love live coding, so I doubt if Astra team will do it live, but I really like this idea, indeed.
Coolio. All right then. So should I move on? I think we have given enough time for everybody to have their answer. And right. So let's just go a little bit into Spring and what Spring is and what Spring Boot is. So Spring is a framework. So it's been around, I think, for about 17 years. It's a Java framework, and its main the initial problem that is initially solved was basically inversion of control and dependency injection. Right, and to make basically the development of applications a lot easier. And the underlying idea behind is that you should only need to know the interface that you want to use in your application and do not need to worry about the implementation by the time you're writing your application. Yes. And here's an example for, we have a REST controller here, and we want to use a greeting service. Right, and our interface is basically, our greeting service will just do that. It will just say hello, right? And but we might need to provide implementations in different languages. So this is the greeting service for French, and this is the greeting service for English. And then at the time when we write the application, we actually don't want to worry about the particular implementation anymore. We just basically say, hey, we need a greeting service, and we're going to auto-wire that in, right? And we just specify which one we need. So in this case, we're going for the English one, and it just provides that to us. And then from then on, we rely on the framework injecting that into our application, right? So that we don't have to do it explicitly anymore. So, and one of the things in Spring is, in my experience, is that you have a lot of these annotations that make it possible, right? So this is what initially, when you're new to it, I think it's a bit, unfamiliar, but they make things a lot easier, right? So this is a very simple, and we're going to use a very simple setup later, right? So we create basically an interface for our class, for our data model, for our data objects that we have, and then also for the API, right? For the way we want to interact with this data, for the find all tasks, updated tasks, deleted tasks, etc. And we're going to publish that in an interface, and then we have the specific implementation that implements that interface with Cassandra using then the DataStax driver. So this is basically the idea of the framework.
Yep. I would add a couple of words on that, because idea of inversion of control may be new to some of our attendees, guests, friends. Could you please skip to one slide before? Yes. When I want to explain the idea of interfaces and inversion of control, that's in general to keep your application maintainable, because complexity is the worst enemy of any system. At some point it becomes more and more complex, so you cannot maintain it anymore. One of the best tools and approaches to handle that is the inversion of control. So you don't use some classes or dependencies directly, but you start to take care of the interfaces. And there are some classes what implement those interfaces. What's the interface and how to explain it the easiest way? Interface is a contract what a class sign it, not literally sign it, but kind of sign it to follow. And then you sign a contract with a bank. You don't care so much about who in the bank will care of your requests or queries. Will it be Emma, John, or a robot in general? That's the way, just you know what, that's the contract, and your bank has to follow the rules you agreed to follow together. And interface is like a contract in the world of software development. Your code start to use interfaces instead of direct classes, and there are some implementations. But the interface is a great way to have this agreement. I will do this, I will not do that. And interface is a great thing to do to handle the over complexity of the code. Inversion of a control, if you don't know what is it, you have to go and learn that exactly after this workshop as a next step. Sorry.
No, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. And cool. So Spring does a lot of things for you. Today we're focusing on basically microservices, but there's a lot of different things. In fact, Spring has grown over the years and provides a lot of capability and functionality. And there's no way we're gonna even cover. We're just looking at the tip of the iceberg today. I think there will be some additional content coming in the next few weeks. We're working on like a good example app for Spring Reactive, right? And then obviously, the web apps, cloud support, event-driven, batch, or you name it, right? So it's a lot of stuff that Spring can do for you. And so there's more capabilities here. What we're using today basically is a principle of dependency injection. We're going to build a REST controller, a REST API. We're actually not using the DAO support. We're basically using directly the so there are different, for example, you can have Spring data for Cassandra, which we are not using today in order to keep it simple, but we have another workshop available that uses that. And then we're using, some test contexts today to test out our connection, etc. And yeah. Okay, so then there's, lots of lovely things that you can do on top of Spring. We can also use Spring Boot. This is what we're using today, which is basically you could say it's a MIDI framework on top of Spring that allows you to create quickly a standalone application, right? So it's very easy to launch, and it's basically an initializer for a production-ready Spring-based project. So we are going to use that today as a to kickstart a quick application. Okay. Oh yeah, and so it's a standalone application. You don't have to configure much. It's very simple in the configuration, and it's there's a lot of automatic decisions already taken for you. You could say it's kind of an opinionated implementation to very quickly get an application up and running. And here sort of the different layers, right? So we have the, this is the persistence layer where we provide the repository. And then we actually skipping the service layer today and skipping directly to the presentation layer where we have our REST API. And when we talk about the implementation of Spring, you will come across these kind of different vocabulary, the presentation layer, which is, and where, to understand where the application sits and what is role for it. So, and you see here, if you have, if you are using a particular repository or this one, for example, you could provide different implementation in order to service it, right? For example, you could have it with a SQL database or with a NoSQL database. And then in order to provide as Alex put it, to satisfy the contract with the interface, then you probably would need to be quite specific in your implementation in order to satisfy that. Today, we're only providing one implementation, which is the one for the Cassandra. But if you wanted to scale that out and try something different, this is the place to do it. Okay, good. Any more questions on that? Okay, so let's plan a little bit what we're going to build. So a few words about microservices and a little bit the history, perhaps. Very often the question comes up when we talk about microservices, what is a microservice? And these are basically small autonomous services that work together. but they're sort of like positioned in contrast to the traditional monolithic application. And this is a little bit of the evolution of, breaking those monolithic applications apart. So here we have everything together. We have the UI and the services and the data, everything together in one place. Often probably also quite organically grown and difficult to maintain and perhaps difficult to replace certain aspects and difficult to update. So here's, for example, one way how you could do it. You could split into front-end, back-end, and data layers. And then here's different approaches with enterprise service buses, for example, with this service-oriented architecture where everybody, all the applications use the same kind of service and help themselves from that. And then the microservices fit into this, right, where these are modern applications where they have a very limited sort of like scope. They're meant to be, useful for distributed architectures. They're not silver bullets as well, right? Alex, I think you have some strong opinions on that as well, that perhaps it's not always necessary to go for a microservice architecture because you introduce additional complexity, etc. You make some things simple and you make some things more complex.
Yes, I would like to say a few words about that, if you don't mind. Sometimes software development world for me looks like a fashion world. I mean, really like fashion, catwalk, all the dresses, and so on. Someone starts to use some nice, cool color or something like that, and now it's the new trend, and everyone is doing exactly the same. How it goes in the fashion world? Sometimes exactly like that goes in the software development world. Someone starts to use microservices or any other technology name, and really a lot of companies start to copy that without a true understanding what they're doing and if they really need that or not. And that's always very painful to see. Microservices and service-oriented architecture is not to remove complexity, but is to distribute complexity. And most of the companies I know and most of the projects I know should be very, very careful using these kind of approaches, because it may lead to much worse consequences than the problem they tried to solve. So in general, I agree with very many people who say monolithic first. You trying to do the microservices, especially if you don't have expertise with microservices, you may make things worse when they were with a monolith. And what I say, in the most of the projects, it would be a good strategy to go with monolith first and start to solve problems with microservices. Only then you have these kind of problems. Because, well, I've very often seen people doing it in the exactly opposite way, creating more troubles using microservices than avoiding them. So be careful. Microservices are not the silver bullet. They aren't perfect fit for the one size. There is no one size fits all. It may be a good choice for you, but it may be a bad choice for you. So stay aware, stay careful. Thank you, Bettina.
No, that's really interesting, because today, as part of the preparation for this workshop, I watched a really good talk between this guy. This is one of the famous knowledgeable experts in microservices, and one of his colleagues, or another expert, Sam Newman, and they were discussing exactly that, right? When should you and exactly what you highlighted with the kind of fashion, right? So simply because it's a new thing, we should all do it, and that you want to be really carefully about it, whether it makes sense, right? So you have quite a lot of advantages from it, right? So it, as you see, I think you put it very well to say, you do not necessarily reduce the complexity, but you distribute it, right? You might gain something from that. For example, higher resilience, and increased release speeds. It's easy to scale, perhaps easier to design, but you still also have the complexity of deploying it, and the orchestration and all these kind of things. So I think it's an interesting discussion. And so he wrote this, Sam Newman wrote this book here about building microservices. He also wrote a book about how to go from monolithic applications to microservices. And I recommend the discussions between him and Martin Fowler if you want to take it a bit further. Cool. Good. So that's Cassandra is quite good for microservices because Cassandra is an ideal database for real-time requests. It's extremely scalable. It has that built into its design, right? So it's designed according to these principles. It's a distributed database. It's really in there, and it's decoupled by design. So in our recommendation is that you would to have one key space per application. You would have one table per query. That makes the data modeling for Cassandra very simple and makes it very simple to support your application and your fast queries. And so it's a good match, right? So for these kind of architectures. So I think that's an example today how to build that with Spring. And so this is what we're building today. Again, it's a to-do service, right? It's the API, basically. It's a REST API for a to-do application. And what you basically expect from it is that you have the ability to insert and create these tasks. You have the ability to list them all. You can mark them as completed. I mean, that's an update. So you update the task with a complete. You can probably also want to delete them at some point, and you might delete them all and clear out your entire history there. So that's what we're going to build today. And this is basically the API we're settling on. So get the complete list, create a new one, delete all of them, get the details of one specific list. So we have a task ID in order to keep them separate. And then delete the task from its read that specific ID task, and then update an existing task, for example, when you want to mark it as complete. So this is the REST API that we want to build, and this is basically our design here. And our application will look like this. We're going to use Swagger today as our front end for these. This is like it delivers you a UI tool that allows you to test the API. And so we're going to utilize this today. We're using the Spring Web component in order to create the REST controller. And we use a to-do list repository, which is this kind of contract with the API and that implements the Cassandra specifics. And then we're connecting directly to Astra, so which hosts the Cassandra service for us. Okay. And so if you think about what the data needs to look like to do that, we want to be able to uniquely identify tasks. So we want to have tasks of a certain ID. For example, we could have several tasks of the same name. For example, I feed my cats every day. So, I would have feed the cats, mark it as complete, feed the cats, mark it as complete again. So I probably want to have a new ID for each of those tasks, even if they have the same title. I want, of course, to have a title in order to be descriptive what the task is about. I want to have the ability to mark it completed. And we actually do have the concept of ordering in there. But in the end, for simplicity, we didn't implement it in our implementation. So we actually don't have an API that allows us to reorder the tasks, but we still have it in a data model here. So that's a bit of a hangover from another example. But so basically, this is going to be our task, our data entity that we will be working with. And in Cassandra, if you haven't used Cassandra before, I think it's a very, very important rule that in Cassandra, you want to be very clear about the queries and the data entities and the relationships before you start modeling your data, right? So it's you want to basically construct your Cassandra tables that they optimally serve your queries. So you want to be very clear what you're asking from your data, so you can lay out the data in Cassandra in such a way that you can serve it immediately, so that we don't have to go to lots of different tables and assemble the answer to our query. We just want to go quickly to one table, get the answer to our query, and take it back. So that is the concept behind Cassandra. So it's very important. If you haven't been to our introductory sessions, it's a real rethink about how to model data in Cassandra versus perhaps, if you're using relational databases where you might start with I have this data and I have to put all these pieces together in order to service this query. So we're starting from the query and we're developing the data model out of that, and that's how we're implementing it in Cassandra. So it might be a little bit different. This is a simple example, but so you might not notice the difference that much because we can basically service all our queries with that simple data model that we're developing. But if you wanted to make it a bit more difficult, like you want to develop, find tasks by type, or find tasks by date completed, or find tasks by user who entered the task, that could actually well look like a different table in Cassandra. So you would create lots of different tables in order to serve these different queries. So this is a slide that we've taken from sort of like the data modeling course. We start, we're very clear about the entities and the relationships. We only have one entity, so we have no meaningful relationships today. We have very simple queries, but then we're mapping this basically to our logical data model, and then we're mapping it to how would it be laid out in Cassandra on disk in order to make the retrieval of data very, very fast for us. And this is what we did come out with, right? So this is our logical model looks like this. So we have the UID, the unique identifier for our tasks, which is the UID. We have the title. This is the description of the task. We have the Boolean flag in order to mark it as completed. And we still have the offset in there, which we're not using today. And this translates to the table in Cassandra. And there's this very important concept of the primary key in Cassandra, which is uniquely identifies the row. It uniquely identifies the task. So we are having the unique identifier. We're using that in order to uniquely identify the task. So we can have several tasks of the same name or several tasks of the same status. Okay. And we don't create that not directly in the database. Today we use our code and our test code to create the table. So you don't have to actually touch the Astra interface in order to create the table. We do that through the code. Okay. Any questions so far, Alex?
Nope, nothing new.
Okay.
It looks like everything is clear.
Okay, perfect. Good. So, and then this is what we're feeding into the repository, right? Into this public interface, in this implementation independent repository that we are sort of like auto-wiring to our application. And here, that's sort of like how it translates there. So this is first we give it the name of the table. This is to do tasks, and then we have the unique the different columns that we have in there. So this is what we're expecting it to look like, and this is what the implementation needs to give us. Okay, and then the queries. So basically, it's create, read, update, delete for to-dos, list all tasks, create a new task, mark task complete, incomplete, delete them all. And we actually put those also into our repository. And then we focus on the implementation in a separate component. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's before we go, I think a few words about the Cassandra drivers, and then we go into the next hands-on. So in order to talk to Astra, we need to use the drivers, right? So we need to be able to, and the driver uses the username and the password, it uses the key space name, and it uses the Secure Connect bundle that we hopefully now have all downloaded successfully in order to build what we call a session, a SQL session with the Cassandra database. And with Astra, it really doesn't matter how many nodes. You just have a single point here, a load balanced URL in order to connect, and everything else is handled for you on the other side. So you don't have to worry about contact points, etc. So this is taken care of. And the drivers, you could use actually, you can use all of DataStax drivers in order to interface with Astra. Today, we're obviously using Java. You need to use the DataStax drivers. They are open source. They're unified drivers. You can just get them from the DataStax webpage. There's a lot of documentation, and you can choose the languages that you like, right? So there's lots of different ones. They're all very, very similar. They basically feature, there might be some small differences between the drivers, but basically they do all the same thing. And they're very optimized for Cassandra, right? So all these kind of things like the ability to know about the data centers and tokens and all these kind of internal structures of data stacks or Cassandra distribution, Cassandra replication. The drivers know all about that in order to make the best use of that. And of course, they support all the schema management and the Cassandra query language and help you build the queries with Query Builder APIs in order to make that access easy and also to parse the results that you get out of the database. Right. So today we're using the Java driver. Yeah.
No. I just wanted to add a couple of words regarding driver when you will be done with this slide. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you can go now. That's fine.
Okay, so I wanted to add one thing regarding the drivers. We use it to consider database drivers as a pretty simple thing. I mean, basically it takes your statements, put it to some, I don't know, SQL or whatever language you are using, and execute the statements and bring back the results. Cassandra driver is not like that. It's much smarter. So Cassandra driver, because, well, take a look. Cassandra is designed to work with big data, with petabytes of data, still answering within milliseconds. And when you're handling petabytes, of course, you have to take care about a lot of servers to spread the load over multiple machines and nodes. And Cassandra driver is as smart, for example, when you start it up, it goes to the closest node, like you are giving an IP address, of course, some node to connect, or Astra URL in this case. It reads the data allocation schema, it reads the metadata about your data and where which part of the data and where which table and partition is located, and then it will communicate directly with the node responsible for this part of data you are working on right now, not asking every next random node, do you have my data or not? So Cassandra driver is a big and very special thing. Also, additionally, for example, with very strong retry mechanisms. So if connection was lost during the statement execution or something like that, it's for driver to take care of switch over, fail over things. So for example, if you have lost one of your data centers, but second data center is still available, driver's job is to switch off to the next available data center without even application noticing this kind of usually catastrophic fails when your application cannot work anymore. So Cassandra DataStax driver is a big thing.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of complexity in all these things here, right? So yeah, so as Alex said, the driver is aware of how your data is replicated, right? And so it's smart, right? It knows about the layout, basically the distributed nature of your database. And then all these kind of things, right? Because it's optimized for very, high ingest, for example, and fast read. So if one node is not responding fast enough, it goes to the next one, and the different reconnection policies. Yeah, so there's a lot of complexity in there that is solved for you already by the driver. They're a very smart thing. I totally agree. And we're not stressing any of that today, but it's good to know as well for the future. But we want to tell you a little bit how you actually work with the driver. So, so the main thing is that you need to establish a CQL session. And so the driver gives you this builder here. And this is the example how we would communicate with, establish a session with Astra. And this is an explicit setting where we set it explicitly in the code. And we do that in a moment together. Basically tell it explicitly which secure connect bundle to use, where we tell it where it's located, right? And this is why we need to have that on your Gitbot instance that you've downloaded, that creds.zip. we tell it to which key space we're going to locate. And by the way, the Secure Connect bundle is key space independent, right? So it's for the whole Astra instance that you have, not just for one key space. We are giving it the credentials, right? Our username and password, and then we say, come on, build that session. And this is the session that we're going to build for the entire application. We're using this for all the queries. So you do not have to have more than one session. In fact, it's our recommendation to just have one per application. The alternative to do this, because there's a lot of additional configurations that you might pass in with the session, is that you can actually set all these details in a file, right? And the driver looks by default for a file of the name application.conf, right? And takes this structure where we basically set all the properties for the Java driver. The basic one here, we're setting the key space. Oh, this is actually to do app today, but I used that for killer video in the past. And then we're telling it which password and username to use. And also, where our Secure Connect bundle is located. And we're going to do that in our second test today, where we set some additional parameters in there. And you can set a lot more things there. So this is really only the beginning. This is the minimum you would want to set. But for example, you could, set a specific, timeout settings, specific advanced properties. There's, for example, if you want to control your load balancing policies, etc. Component really simplifies your connection setup, because that's how easy it then looks if you just use the application.conf. It basically goes for default to this file, and it just creates the session. Okay. You're ready to try it out? That's before I go into this, perhaps. So it's a singleton, and it's also a really good practice to close it when you that you free up all the open sockets that you have. Okay. But that's already handled for you by Spring, actually. Okay, so let's go and do the hands-on and try out the connection to Astra. So if you're not using any of the recommended or the values that I used for to-do app, keys, and for the username and password, you might have to just modify a few things. But we get there, right? So I'll show you where to do that. So let's go into have a look at the code here. Oh, it stopped. That you can just start it again, the Git part. It should still all be there. I might just go again through the initializing of the workspace. Okay. Are we all right? I hear some messages that the stream has stopped, Alex.
Yes, for me it looks well. Okay.
Can you hear us again, guys? Can you see us?
Yeah, YouTube looks better now. Everyone, are you here? Can you hear us?
Have a look on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right, cool. Right, if we're back, then I think the important thing that I want to sort out first in the Git part is I want to make sure that we have the credentials in the right directory. So currently it's actually not in the project root, right? So the project root is Spring boot to do app. So we want to move the credentials in there. A ton of lag, oh dear.
Mm-hmm. So if David.
Can you hear us? Give us a second. If you, oh, it's okay. Yeah. Right, we have to call everybody back from their 5-minute break.
Doesn't matter. Okay, looks like we are back.
Okay,
but
good.
We have announced the 5 minutes pause already. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think we can take it easy, I think, anyway, because this is the hands-on now. I'm just definitely have the creds in the right directory so that you move that into the right directory. So you should have it here. Let's clear this out. Make it a bit easier to read.
Bettina, we have a Discord screen at the moment. Oh yeah,
really?
looks better. Yes, yeah, no. Now it's fine, maybe on my side.
Okay. Yeah, so
okay, so anyway, we are still at the pause, and I can try to switch it to my side. David, if you want. If it's not getting better, I can try to start. Should I?
what's the reason for the lag? Do you know? Okay.
It's always like that in IT. Okay, that's better.
So can anybody hear us? Can you see us?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, yes. So you should all see the Gitbot, hopefully. Alex, if you just get some more confirmation, and then
give me a second. We anyway arranged a 5 minutes break at 13 minutes. At 13 minutes of this hour, if we speak about European time, so we have to wait for at least 2 minutes before the break is over, because there are some people maybe missing.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Were there any questions that we could answer in the meantime?
Okay, so okay, let's fall back to my place then. Write something. You can just shut it down in a moment, because when I'm don't forget to stop streaming at the OBS side, because I will catch it to be so that's my head. Bettina. Give me a moment. So Bettina here, okay. Good, and I'm switching to the presentation. No, not presentation, but NDI screen. Boom. So I'm ready to start stream. Mic aux. So picture should be fine, sound should be fine. Bettina, would you please say something?
I hear sound now.
Yes. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear David, and we can hear myself.
I'm hearing you.
Yes, yes, very good.
Good, good. Cool. All right then. And everybody can see my screen?
Yep.
I'm on Gitbot?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go have a quick look at the next exercise. So we want to make, first of all, we want to make sure that you have your creds in the right directory, right? We want to have it in a project root, and that's called Spring Boot to do app. So in Gitbot, if you downloaded it, you probably had it in the base directory of the repo. It has the same name, not useful, but make sure that you have it, move it into the Spring Boot to do app, so it sits at the same level as the POM, right? That's where you want to have it, right? The instructions here, you can use the move command, move cred zip into Spring Boot to do app, and make sure you have it there. So, okay, good. So in my case, that's here. Obviously, you need to have it downloaded first. We did that in the first. So now this is our first test here, connectivity to Astra explicit. I think that's what the class is called. And here, connectivity to Astra explicit test. And here we are changing, this is where all the relevant settings are, right? So we are telling it where the Astra zip file is, right? So this is where the location of our creds zip. We're giving it the KB user. This is the username, the very secure password we've chosen, KB password, and to do app for the Astra key space. So if you use something different, right, make sure that you update that accordingly, right? So because otherwise it's not going to work. Okay. Right. Okay. So I think we probably also have to build the application first. I think just make sure that we do the clean install build here, skipping the tests, and do that first. That downloads all the dependencies for us as well. So this is always good to get that out of the way. So you see this is doing a lot of stuff here. Copy that in there. So in case that was a bit quick here, so this is here, install the required dependencies, mvn clean install with the flag that we're skipping the tests here because we haven't implemented them all. And then you should see this is the success you should see. And then we can proceed to the first test. So this is connection to Astra. Again, you want to make sure that your specifics are updated here according to your settings. And then let's run the test. So we could actually have a look at the test because I should explain to you how we set up the session. So this is using this here, right? So let's make this a bit, let's have a look here. This is basically where we're setting up the session.
Bettina,
So
wait a second. It looks like we have issues again. Give me a second. Okay, I guess I know where it happens. If it happens both for me and David, then give me a second to fix that. So I kindly ask you for 30 seconds for a 30 seconds break because I have to adjust something. So it will not happen again. Give me a moment. I expect I know what's going on and I know how to fix that. I will need just 30 seconds to do so. I will have to stop the stream, so we will disappear for a moment. Don't worry, we are getting back. Bettina, could you please, or David, or anyone, could you please write something in the chat? So I will... I
already have.
Already, so I will restart the stream in a moment. So I'm stopping streaming. So we should be back online.
Checking. I see the YouTube one. You look like you're live on YouTube.
Yes, it looks like we are good on YouTube. I expect some issues with Restream. So I'm streaming directly to YouTube, and it should be fine very clear.
Oh, that's why. Okay, I'm not seeing Twitch, but I see you great on YouTube.
We will not appear in Twitch because we are streaming directly to YouTube, avoiding Twitch. I hope we have had no one on Twitch because Twitch is...
No, we didn't.
Okay, good. So, Bettina, I'm very sorry for the interruptions with the stream. I know how it's uncomfortable when someone interrupts you all the time.
No worries for me, it's worries for our audience. I hope everybody is still there, right? And hopefully everybody has done all the tests anyway in the meantime. So yeah, I just wanted to show where we create the session here explicitly. So this is what we had on the slides, right? So we are feeding it the bundle here and the credentials that we set up earlier, and basically that's what it is. And this is a successful test. We run it, and you want to see here that this. No, we haven't run it yet, actually. This was just, let's run the test. So let's go here for the test. This is the static test, and put it in.
Yeah. Bettina, we have a question. Where to get UID from DB?
The unique, where are we going to set the unique ID in the task later?
Maybe, I don't know.
Is that the question? Yeah, we come to that later, I think. We are setting, when we look at the task at the API, where we insert the UUID basically there. Yeah. So you do not have to construct them. We're going to use the driver to create the UID. So the driver does that, and you also have the option to set it directly on the server-side functions on the database to create the UUID. Okay. So this was the first test, and we are running on the connectivity to Astra explicit test, and this is the successful outcome. Here we see an OK and connection established to Astra with key space to do app. So we ran one test, it was successful. We are connected to Astra with this one, and we can also look at the other test, which is the connectivity with the application.conf, right? For simplicity, to keep it a little bit simpler, we've grouped that into the resources folder here in the main application. So we didn't create a separate resources folder here for the test. And this is the application.conf here, which is, so the application.yaml is something that Spring uses for some additional configurations for the various components that we have in there. This is not used by the driver, but the application.conf, that's used by the DataStax Java driver. And here we have the session, basically the session key space configured. Again, if you used our values, you don't have to change anything there, right? We have the creds.zip, and then we have our password and username here. But if you have your own specially named key space and your own password and username, then you want to update those things, right? So you go to the resources, to the application.conf, so the resources in the main section of our source folder, into the application.conf, and then you want to edit your file according to your settings if you've made any changes. Okay. And we've actually, for example, set some additional connection timeout parameters here, which are sometimes useful if you have really slow connections from your laptop or something. It's not, or from Gitbot actually. I think it's just in order to make sure that we're not timing out in any kind of initial connection handshaking with the database. These are very generous. You probably don't need that much, but it's another example how you feed additional configuration and how much simpler that actually is using this configuration file. Right, so you don't have to do it in the code. And then this is the second test here. This is the connectivity to Astra with conf file. And you see that the session itself is then a lot easier to set up. In fact, we don't even need to have that bit where we specify the file because it looks by default into the resources folder to find the application.conf. But if it was named something different, you would specify it here and then explicitly load that in. Okay, so we can run that second test, and we can, where is it? Yes, the second test. And try that out. And there should be really no surprise. When we run that, it should exactly have the same outcome as before. I hope you can see that all right in the small console here. So with the large font, I'm a little bit short on real estate here, but it was another successful test. We've established a connection with Astra, with the keyspace to-do app, so everything is fine. Okay, good. So is everybody, who's still doing it? So I think that would be the first question. And is that successful for everybody? Or are there any problems or questions?
Yeah, that would be nice to know. That's very fine. If you prefer not to do it, right now on yourself.
Oh, but please do it.
No. Of course, we recommend to do it. But whatever your situation is, we don't know. Maybe you don't have a laptop with you right now and so on. So you can perfectly do this workshop, as most of our workshops. You can do it right now. But what's important is there is a button right next to Bettina, call it subscribe button. And that's a button you have to push. That's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't do it with us now, we want you to do it with us now, so to be clear. But if you don't do it with us now and you have questions later, we are also still there, right? You know, so you can ask us questions in Discord, not on the YouTube chat. That's no longer available after the session, but we will still be answering your questions in Discord. And also we have the community forum, community.datastacks.com, where there's lots of scope for asking questions and giving very detailed answers. So this is so we will definitely always here to help you. We want you to try it out, and even if you do it in your own time. Cool. So yeah, give us thumbs up if those initial tests were okay, and then we can continue and look at how the driver actually works. So for some, how do we actually execute queries? Do you see any thumbs up?
I see Alex? A couple of thumbs ups. Yep.
Cool. Nice.
So looks better and better, yes.
Excellent.
Yep, and it looks like I was correct, and avoiding restream, and with a direct stream, we did pretty well in the end. At least the connection quality is more or less fine in the end. Yep.
Perfect. Okay,
good. Quick question: the Gitbot link is a permalink. Does it changes over time, or it's destroyed after the container stops? So it's Gitbot link by itself is permanent, but your application scheduled and running there is temporary. So after some time of inactivity, it will be paused and terminated. But that's not so big deal because you can spawn it again.
I think actually it will only be paused, right? So I think there is an option that you can see all the workspaces that are paused for you, and you can choose to explicitly terminate some. And I think the time for how long they will be paused before they get automatically terminated is quite generous as well. It's it's definitely more than a few days.
Okay, yeah, right? That's great.
So actually, yeah, it's really nice. So for example, you made this modification to your Gitbot workspace now by downloading the secure bundle, right? So when you pause when the workspace gets paused because you have dinner and you go away for a couple of hours, the workspace stops and is paused. When you launch it, when you start it again, the bundle is still there. So your context is still all there. All the modifications that you made to that workspace is still there. You can also pull new code changes. So if you make some changes to the Gitbot, to the GitHub repository, you can do a Git pull and you can update your workspace, right? But I think after a long period of inactivity, it gets automatically terminated, and I think it's 30 days or so. But you can also explicitly terminate it and start a new one, right? And you can have actually quite a few different workspaces at the same time. So it's very generous, really. I think it's great what they offer there. Okay. So should I move on, or should anybody needs more time? These are probably not so difficult tests. I think we probably can move on, right? I can't hear Alex anymore. Are you still there?
No, it's fine. I'm here.
Perfect.
Yes, we have more thumbs ups.
Let's move.
Yeah, cool. So I think we can move on.
So we don't run totally out of time here. So in order to execute queries, that's really what we want to do with a driver, and we just use the execute method. It's really simple as that, right? So, and we just insert our statement. And the statement is a CQL. It's a Cassandra query language statement. It looks very much like SQL here, but it's a subset of SQL, or it's different. It looks very similar, but it's using Cassandra query language. And we basically could put an entire statement just into this, and we will do this in a moment when we create our schema. So we can also make the schema changes to Cassandra query language statements. And you have a couple of options, right? There's a difference between simple statements and prepared statements, and they have really performance implications. So this one here, this is a simple statement, right? So this is just a simple SQL statement. And you can have parameterization, right? Where you can say, so I'm just inserting a question mark here and then add this positional value, insert the 5 in place of the question mark. Or you can name your value and then add the named value in order to insert that. And that's definitely a recommended practice, right? So that you can secure yourself, for example, from some kind of injection tag or something in order to do that. So that's one way. So that's using, the simple statement object from the driver. But a better way is to prepare a statement up front. So you compile it once, and that the client actually knows about this statement. And then you reuse the statement, right? And bind it with different values. And for that, we use the prepared statement object. And basically, we prepare it once. We tell the session, this is a prepared statement that we're going to use again and again. And then we explicitly tell it how to bind it. And it's then the session that I think is actually it that then composes the statement for you, and it's not seen as a new statement. So it's basically like a template, and that makes for much faster execution. So it's a much better way of interacting, especially if your statements are similar in structure, right? So if you can kind of express them as a template. So that's the recommended way of doing that. Okay. And in our code, we have examples for both, just using the simple statements, but also for the prepared statements. So you can use them as a reference if you write your own application, how to do that. Okay. And then the other thing that you probably want to know is how do we work with the results that we get, and what do we actually get from the driver? So what do we get from a query? And what is returned is the result set objects, right? And it contains rows, which is the records basically from the database, and also additional info that you might want to find out, how long does it take to execute this query, some additional info. And the rows, this is the object that you want to iterate through then in order to retrieve all your results, right? And so that you can then use to parse. You just get one, from your result set. You just want the first one or the one, or you want to have all of them, or you want to page through them and iterate through them. So there's a lot of different APIs, and this is where it might be different between the drivers, right? So where you would see a difference between the Node driver and the Python driver, how they're implemented. But in terms of functionality, pretty much provide you similar functionality. It's just that the API might be named differently. For example, results at first, or etc. Okay. And also these kind of things, tests for nulls, or what type you want to get out, and how you read it out. So that might be a little bit different between drivers, but this is basically how you work with the result sets. And we're going to show you that in the code in a moment as well. Okay. Good. So let's go and do the next exercise and do some more interesting stuff. So we're still going to use the tests before we go into the main application. And we will use one test that will actually create the schema. And then we go very quickly into Astra. You don't have to do that. I'll show you that and show you that the schema has been created. And because currently we don't have anything in there, we just have the key space, right? And I'll show you that first of all in Astra here. So let's see whether my Astra is still up. That gets timed out sometimes a little bit as well. That still looks good. Okay. Use them. Okay. Wait a moment. Password prompt is a bit long. I'm back. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're going to use the to-do app key space. And let's have a look at the key space. Oops. Oh, this is the key space itself. It hasn't got any tables. So describe tables. Nothing is in there. So we're going to use the test to set them up. And let's do that. So in our, we go to exercise 2 in our GitHub repo. And we're going to look at the create schema in Astra test in the text folder. And basically, I'll show you in the code. So create schema in Astra test, the code. And so here's our session that we're using, right? And this is the simple statement that we're creating here. So we're creating that here, schema builder, create table. We're calling this table. We're taking the table definition from our repository where we defined everything. We defined it all in one place. So the repository is here in our to-do repository. And this is the implementation agnostic interface, right? So this is here this is the table to-do tasks and the different columns, right? In our repository. And in our test, we take that here in order to construct our, our table name, our partition key, right? Our columns, etc. from there into there. And this is basically built a simple statement, just using a driver method, the schema builder, to build it. And then we're just executing this statement that we created with this builder with the session. And that's basically it. Okay, so we then execute this test here. I can never remember these test names. That's why I like to copy them. So you find it all in there. And just put that in there and see what happens. So it's running this test. The connection is established. The table to-do task has been created if needed. Actually, there is something in here that we say. We say here, if not exists, so you don't, if the table doesn't already exist, you don't have to create it again. That's a optional flag that you can set, but you might as well use it. And let's have a look in Astra. So let's describe the tables again. And there we are. There's our to-do task table that has been created with this simple statement that we executed to the session. And we can also look at the table itself. There it is. So this is create table with the primary key for the user ID with the completed flag for Boolean and the offset that we don't use and the title. So you see here, apart from the primary key, everything is ordered alphabetically. That's why they're in this order. and the primary key comes first. Okay, so that was successful. And you can try that out yourself. And then the next test is all the simple, inserts actually, that you get some data in there. It's called quite with Astra test, but I've actually removed quite a few of those tests from here in order to make it a bit simpler. So this is just doing inserts. And for example, this one is using simple statements to insert some tasks, right? And here, for example, we're using, actually here we're constructing the UUID with the Java util here. So we could also use the driver utils, or we could also use the UUID utils of the database in order to construct that. But in this case, we're just doing it this way and creating the UUID. And then here we can say, okay, we're constructing a workshop task. Right? And this is our, and we're setting this is false. This is still something we need to do, false. And then we are just, again, constructing. So this is the variables we're going to use. And then we're, again, just using the simple statement builder in order to construct the simple statement object. And we're passing the object to the session to execute it. And then run the test. Expect this to be created in our database. So let's run this test here and do a couple of inserts. In this case, it's just one insert here. Put that in. Again, it's running test. And here I did actually, if you saw here, I just printed out the created UUID, right? So it's printed that one out. Not very fancy. So this is the UUID that was created, and it ran successfully. So let's have a look in our Astra database and just make this a bit easier to read for everybody. Is that big enough, actually? So
yeah, it's pretty clear. At least on my screen, it looks very good.
There we are. So this is at HR. Oh, I forgot to save. Oh, what an important lesson. What an important lesson here. Gitbot does not do autosave. And I'm so used by using IntelliJ so that it's doing autosave. So if I save this now and I do this one again, hang on, come and save this. Yeah, save. So there was this unsaved button. So, and let's run this test again. So we should actually insert a task here. And just see it here. Map. There we go. We have the second task. Yeah, that was actually a good lesson. Yeah. So if you use Gitbot, if you make any changes and you think, oh, nothing is happening, so it's you have to explicitly save, right? Okay. Good. I think in interest of time, because it's already, let's have a quick look at what happens. Because we're running up to the technical issues, we lost probably 10 minutes. I think we could just proceed to the next test, and I can bring up the entire application for you and run it for you and show you what's happening. And then I show you quickly where to look in the repository, and I quickly show you the implementation a little bit. But it's also all written down in the Gitbot repo, in the GitHub repo, in order to get, if you want more information and look. Obviously, you also have the code to really look into this. So instead of going back to the presentation, I'll just show you here what we would be doing next. So now we've run all the tests, right? Everything is fine. And now we actually want to have a quick look at our full application here. So we have our to-do list repository, right, which is this kind of contract that we sign with the application. This is what we will be using, and this is what we will be providing. So here is a description, basically, of the entity. And then we have the different APIs, right? We have the find by ID, which is, looks up a task by its UUID. We have the upsert, which is, this is a Cassandra term, like it's an insert or an update. Basically, both of those things do the same thing in terms of Cassandra. So we have the ability to delete by UUID. We have an API to list, find all the UUIDs, all the tasks, and to delete them all, right? So this is probably the most interesting here, one where we insert in the data, right? With the and we also upserting, we might be modifying a task. And then we have the specific class that implements the the data, the object, right? The data object here, right? So this is the UUID again, the title, the complete, and the flag, right? And all its constructors and everything that we need to have there. And then we have the Cassandra specific implementation. I think that's what you probably are most interested in and what you want to concentrate on. And let's have a quick look here. So here we have a whole section where we're preparing, or we're basically defining some prepared statements. And you see we're preparing prepared statements for find a task, for find all, delete task, and delete all. And you will see them sort of used later on. And as I said earlier, we're mixing our approach here for the upsert. We're still using the simple statements. So just as an example, we're defining again the simple statement here. And it's very similar to what we used in the test, basically, right? Where we basically have the insert into the to-do task, all the different column values that you want to update, and then we bind these positional values here in place of those question marks in order to insert it, right? So that is the implementation for the upsert or insert API. And then if you, for example, look at the find all here, this is using the prepared statement. So we're saying, so execute the prepared statement here, and then the rest is sort of like, how do we present that actually back to our client here? So this is the implementation of the list all, of the find all API. And yes, you can have a look at those. And a little bit. This is the implementation, and then the final thing that binds it all together is the REST controller. So and this is where all these annotations come in. And we really tried to keep it very simple, but we had to include quite a few things in order to make it actually run. For example, the cross-origin annotations here. Then the annotation for the REST controller. Then this is for the roots that we're supporting. And then you see the main important things here is where basically auto-wiring with the implementation. And in this case here, we're using the qualifier. We only have one implementation, so you wouldn't need to specify a qualifier actually at all. But in case you had several one, and we're using this one that we named to do backend for the Cassandra driver, right? That's the name that we gave to this specific implementation. But I want to put your attention to a few other things here, a few other annotations here, like operation, API response. These are all annotations that we're using to support Swagger. And we're using the Swagger today in order to basically test out our API, because we do not have the time to go to a fully built GUI today to support our to-do list. Right, so we want to be able to come to a kind of user interface that allows us to test this application, and we are using Swagger. And this is all the annotation that we see in Swagger then in the UI, right? So it tells us what kind of response we're expecting and what the description is of that response, etc. Okay, good. So let's run this very quickly. So I've explained all those things in the README, so you can have a look there if you want to read through this again. But in order to run it, it's actually really simple. With MDN Spring Boot run. So let's do that. And then let's have a look at how that actually works with Gitbot, because that's actually quite interesting. Again, it's downloading a lot of dependencies in order to support that. So that looks good. So this is, if you've never used Gitbot before, this is another really thing that I love about Gitbot. It actually allows you to use and open ports, right? So I clicked on this make public, port 8080. So it's serving on port 8080 and make it public so we can actually access it from outside. And now you can open a browser, right? So I click on open a browser. And this is our Swagger API. And I'm just showing you here, make this a bit bigger, which allows us then to test. And all the annotations that we put in there, right, in the REST controller, they're basically serving to build this interface for us and make it a bit more interesting and useful. So for example, you can see here the schema that we're using. Again, this is the task schema. And we can now test out all the APIs. Right. For example, we can retrieve the complete list of tasks. Let's do that. So we go to Get, try it out, right? Execute, and there we are. So we see these are the tasks that we put into our Astra database. So it's actually working. We've got the connection established. It finds the database, it finds the right data, and it pulls it out. And then we can do other things here. For example, we can post a new task here. So we can try this out. And this is the body it would send. It's actually using a dummy UUID. It will create something different. So this is the Swagger task. We execute that. We should actually see what we get here. So we get a response score 200. Right, that's good. Yeah, so that was successful. And if we go into our Astra and look at our tasks, we now have the Swagger task in there. Right, so that post successful. And then we can go in there, for example, I think for the interest of time, because we definitely want to go to the Menti. I think I'll just show you now. Okay, let's do perhaps a deletion of one specific one, and then we can delete them all. So we use this UUID here and delete a specific task by UUID. We put that in here, try it out, put that in there, execute it. We get a success code, 204. That's good. And if we check, okay, it's been deleted. Okay. We could also do a similar way how you would do the upsert now if you wanted to set something to complete it, etc. But I think I'll leave that to you to play with. And then instead, I think we should go probably to the Menti. What do you think? So that we give you a chance to play for some swag.
Yeah, we have to do Menti. So we have to do Menti. Quiz.
Yeah, exactly. Quiz.
Take a look. We have take a look. We have not so many people today. I mean, especially after the recent issues with networking and stream. So everyone has a pretty high chance to win some swag. So yeah,
exactly.
Go to Menti. Go to menti.com. In the best case, use your phone. Go to Menti, use code 8703016. It's on the screen right now in the center top. And use this code to jump into our quiz.
Cool. Excellent. I've got 32 now. I think that probably looks good. So you want to, when you answer the Menti, you really want to do this on the phone because you see a lag on YouTube.
Yep.
Right? So by the time the question comes up on YouTube, it's probably already been answered by other people. So you want to look at the screen so you get the best at the phone screen or your browser screen if you use Menti in the browser to get the best results. Don't look at it on YouTube. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I've got 35 now. So I think I'll go ahead.
Yes, I think it's good.
Good. Okay, so 5 questions. Let's see. I need to enter the start account answer. Okay. Answer fast to get more points. Right? Think fastest fingers. So when the DB is initializing, what do you see? Check all that applies. You can launch DataStax Studio. There's the green banner with spinning wheel. The cluster details tab is empty. The connection details tab is empty. What is Astra already? Okay, that was a little bit of a difficult question. Yeah, but actually, you know, we have some. Let's see what the leaderboard tells us. Let's see what the leaderboard tells us. And okay, that's interesting. Good. Alex, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
So, okay. Right, next one is, we've got Boaty, my boat face. That's lovely. Okay, so next one is, let's see. What's the question? Microservices. Let's have a look.
I'm going to take the prizes.
Oh, no.
Yes,
the method
yes.
to ensure tight coupling. Microservices are only good on Raspberry Pis. They require enterprise service buses to communicate, and the way to isolate domains, workloads, and reduce coupling. Oh, very good. That's a resounding. Okay, very good. That's wonderful. Cool. Let's see leaderboard. Let's have a look. And Alex, you're still active.
Don't let me win your prizes. Answer fast and correct.
Oh, where's Boaty McBoatface? He disappeared. So, okay, Amal, Sutagra, you know, you want to stay on top of Alex there, right? Okay, next one. I always forget to hit enter. So, how many sessions objects should you use in your app? Look at your phone. 1 per connected client, as many as are needed, 1 per application. Should I have to do anything really? It's just your opinion. So let's see. Just my opinion. Probably doesn't count very much. So very good. Yeah, it's actually a lesson we want to take away, right? You should have only 1 per application. Right. So that's
and that's very important lesson to learn. You should have only 1 session object is a singleton if you prefer singletons, or whatever session manager you use. It doesn't matter. You should have 1 session object, because that's the most important object for a driver, which manages the driver. And it's very important to have only 1, because this way it can handle on the connection pool all the possible connections, caching things, retries, and so on in the best case. So don't try to create many session objects per applications. Avoid that. That's an anti-pattern. 1 per application.
Important lesson. Okay. Right, but you know, if you got it wrong, you probably still have a good chance of winning something here. So, Alex, you should really get something wrong for a change. So, he's too fast. Okay, Stefan, Vlad, Edi, and Augustus, I want you to kick Alex off the third spot.
Go do it.
So, the next... Yeah, go do it. So, okay, why should you prepare statements? So look at your phone for the possible answers. To ensure they are ready for the send stage, to speed up queries, prepared statements are required to properly cook them for your guests. Why should you prepare them? What do you think? Very good. That's very good. Wonderful. Yeah. So that's it's a really good lesson. Actually, Cassandra, you know, will flag that up in the logs if you use too many unprepared statements. So it's good to do that. Okay. And finally, I think that's all. This is our leaderboard. Alex, are you still up there? No. I think you've been. No, you're still there. Oh, God. All right. Kick him off this spot.
Stefan, keep fighting. Keep fighting.
You're doing fine. Okay, I think that's the last one. The last question. Using results at all is a good practice to retrieve results. Oh, we didn't actually cover that much. I like using all available memory in my application. No. Yes. So if you think it through, you know, is it a good thing to get your entire database downloaded, you know, in one call? So think about it, whether it's such a good thing. Yes, very good. So yeah, we didn't actually cover it in that much detail. You know, it's actually something with Cassandra, simply because you can, because the API is not necessarily the reason why you should do it, right? So it's you know, we have a lot of paging support there in order to break it down that you don't get all the results in one go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, very good. Okay, let's fingers crossed. Alex, please behave. Oh, well done.
Whoa!
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Amal, Sudhakar, and Stefan, if you could just make yourself known to Jack Fryer. So this is jack.fryer@datastacks.com, and Fryer is Alex, if you could just pop in the email.
Jack did that already.
Into the chat. And so get in touch with Jack and for prizes. So there's some formalities in order to get the address and perhaps some extra steps if you have to send to India. But yeah, to send you your swag. Thanks very much for playing along. Okay. Okay, so before we wrap up, if you just stay on Menti just for a moment. So just give us a little bit of feedback, what we could improve. This is free form, anonymous. We don't know who put what in. Be frank, tell us what we can do better. And or what you liked, you know, and let us know. So, do I need to hit anything here, or is it? Oh, it's coming up. Okay. Streaming setup. Yeah, we get that. So we had problems with that yesterday as well. I wonder whether it was the same problem.
That's actually the issue wasn't on our side, but in the end, well, yes, we excluded this third-party provider, and it went well. Yes, sorry.
Okay, perfect.
It's not a bandwidth issue, yeah.
Okay. And if you continue to build something with Astra, please let us know. We would so much love to see your applications. You know, that you're trying to do, and show them off to us. You know, so we want to. It would be great. So keep us informed about your progress, and see you again in another one. Okay. Perfect. Oh, thanks. Lots of lovely feedback. That's wonderful. And we'll sort out the streaming. Absolutely. Cool. Okay, so I think let's just go to I'll leave the Menti up if you have some additional feedback. That's fine. But I think I'll just go back to the presentation, make sure. Yeah, that was basically the Swagger. So if you want to take it a bit further, we actually have a full exercise workshop, another 2 hours, which goes a lot more into the details of the to-do MVC, and also hooks up the API to the prefab client GUI that is provided for the backend API tests, and also for the API spec tests. And you might find it quite interesting to do that. The reason why we didn't do it in this workshop is that it makes the data entity a bit more complex, the additional fields that are not obvious why we need them, right? And that's just because we want to support these API specs. So we need to have some kind of feedback loop in order to feedback them, you know, to answer back to the spec tests. So we removed them for our current simple API. But all this is recorded, right? And there's a GitHub repo for that available. And it would be basically a next step up. It also uses different Spring methods. You know, it uses the data access objects, and it also uses the Spring data as 2 other alternatives in order to implement your repository. So you might want to look into that. So it's definitely another step up. Okay. And then also what's coming up with is more Spring in the future. For example, Spring Reactive. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, subscribe and stay tuned for content Okay. And then obviously there's tons and tons of examples as well. And you can also go to data stats, to stay up to date in order for additional examples, and we're constantly updating those things. So you can have a look at hopefully a lot of material for you to continue your learning journey if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Okay, and that was it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you, Bettina. And thank you all for the great feedback. I see you like this workshop and more to come. Next Thursday, we have Introduction to Cassandra. And next closest Monday, so 4 days later, we start for 4 weeks course Docker containers. From basics to best practices. So if you are curious about the Docker or want to improve your knowledge, that's definitely a good place to be. So you can subscribe at our Eventbrite page.
Yeah, and with Alex, you don't want to miss that. It's going to be awesome, right? So
thank you.
Very interesting. Cool. All right, then. Were there any questions that were burning? Anything that you want to address right now? I have got probably another 5 minutes before I need to go and speak to my children's teachers. But any other questions that we didn't address during the workshop? Nothing. Okay.
Nope, no questions. It looks like it all was very clear.
Perfect. Goody. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you again sometime. So thanks very much, and stay in touch on Discord or community. See you there.
See you again.